Hello and welcome back to the Royal She podcast. I'm Charlie Parks and I'm here with Matt Clough.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. The listeners may be able to tell I've got a slightly sore throat, but yeah, doing good. How are you
I
doing?
sweay you've just put that on like twice as much.
Twice as much.
As soon as we hit record. Just before I hit record, you were like, hello, yes, and you. Hello.
I was singing before we started recording, which probably hasn't helped.
In falsetto.
Can I hit a falsetto, do you think?
That was falsetto, I think.
Okay.
Don't demonstrate, please.
No, I won't.
We are recording, it's currently 5:58 on Wednesday the 29th of April. So, you know, listeners with an eye for detail might be thinking, Charlie and Matt, you're going to miss the Leicester game. That's the idea.
We know.
Like, we are specifically recording in the hopes that we will at least miss a good chunk of it.
In and
I
around.
just plan to watch any of it. Like, I'm just going to be vulnerable for a second. A lot of this podcast, there's been like a background theme weaving through this podcast. It's me learning how to be a football fan. And I feel like
I think you've learned.
This is the hardest lesson yet. This is the lesson of just extreme disappointment and
despair, bleakness.
And, you know, I mean, I said I was going to be vulnerable. So the last 18 months for me on a personal level have not been great. And the last week or so has, in a micro level, has not been great. So I just don't see how watching that football team at the moment is going to be in any way productive to my sort of mental state or mental health. There's no joy in it. There's just no joy in it at all, which is sad. And yeah, it's just very sad.
Yes, I think there's been times when Leicester have been a balm to you, and I think right now is not one of those times. And I think, I obviously have been doing this a lot longer than you have. I would like to think I'm generally a optimistic person and optimistic football fan. And, you know, famously, I am a Bolton fan, so I grew up in what was one of the most successful periods of our history, and the last sort of 15 odd years have not been one of those periods, but I still keep going back to the well and finding reasons to be cheerful. But I will admit right now, things do feel pretty bleak on the Leicester front. I think, you know, this is not what we're going to talk about on this episode, but we are fully resigned to being in the relegation playoff, to the point where I texted you a massive long list of all the different permutations that could happen for what team will end up playing there.
Not just the WSL, not just a playoff game. I'm fully resigned to being in the WSL2 next season. I just think that they look so hopeless that I think that I just don't know. Anyway, like I say, we're not going to talk about that, but
I just do that on the future.
Just wanted to get that out of my system, quite honestly. But also, I just do want to say a big thank you to PSG and Bayern Munich men's teams for just bringing the joy of football back to me very briefly last night, because that was an absolutely brilliant game. I think I've seen people online talking about it's like probably the best game that many people would have seen.
Luis Enrique, who is the PSG manager, said I think it was the best game he'd ever been involved with.
Yeah, I think for like the neutral, I mean, to be fair, like for both teams,
I think fans for both teams, you kind of get to a point where you're just like,
this what's mad is I feel like I said this to you as well at the time, is like, what's mad is like, this game has been so intense and so crazy. What if it's just 5-5?
Yeah.
And then they go back, you know, they go to Germany and it's just start again.
Yes.
That's insane. That is an insane thing.
Scenario.
This
game could be this crazy and not actually matter at all. But
anyway, I just wanted to, and then I think we're gonna. It feels like absolute sacrilege to say that we're going to watch the men's Champions League tonight. If there was any other women's football on, I would.
We should say as well, just really quickly, again, this is not what this episode's about, but because we haven't touched on it since the news happened, but you mentioned the Frauen-Bundesliga there, we should say that obviously you don't have to go to the Frauen-Bundesliga to have a sort of a touch point for women's football, because Union Berlin in the men's Bundesliga are the first club in the top 5 leagues to have appointed a female manager.
Didn't you call this on an episode a little while ago? I think we did like a preview episode with Sam Beccarino, and I feel like you said that we were going to start seeing more women's managers going into the men's game?
I think it was not this season. I think it was the season before, and I
Right.
predicted it would be the first season when we'd see a female manager in the English Football League.
So you were a little bit off,
Which was, yeah,
but
but
not far off.
it does feel like we're sort of trending in that direction. Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels, yeah. We won't go into it too much, but yeah, we're all honorary Union Berlin fans right now. No offense to Wolfsburg or whatever the other teams down there in the Bundesliga, but yeah, it'd be great to see them. Pull off. It's not a great escape because I think they still are outside the relegation zone, but stay safe and
Yeah.
good moment for football overall, I think.
Good shout out. So after that sort of traditional tangent, a bit of therapy as well, we will get into the actual topic of this week's episode, which is entitled, Where do Manchester City go from here? As it stands, despite a stumble on Saturday against Brighton, unexpected, I suppose, but very good performance from Brighton nonetheless, Manchester City look set to get their hands on their first WSL title in a decade this season. They could also still win the FA Cup, but given Chelsea's dominance over the last 6 seasons, I think the title alone would be a massive success. Obviously, if they added the FA Cup to that as well, very, very, very
Icing
good,
on the
excellent
cake.
season. So there's no doubt that they've been an excellent team this season. They've had statement victories over Chelsea at the Etihad. They've done the double over Manchester United. Obviously, just been consistently very, very good. However, it should be noted that unlike their closest rivals, they've had no Champions League. And so therefore they've been able to focus the majority of their energy on the WSL. That will all change next season, and to maintain a strong position in the league whilst also competing in the Champions League, where do they go next? Is it more of the same, or is change and progress needed? I think everyone would agree they can't stand still. They have to progress. They have to do something different, at least not necessarily different, but evolved, refined. And we're going to dig into what that is. And that's going to cover some of the more obvious things like personnel. Who do they need to add? Is there anyone that they sort of need to move on, upgrade, replace? And who do they desperately need to retain? One name comes to mind. And then I think you're going to sort of talk us through tactics-wise, identity-wise, like how do they need to evolve on the pitch, whoever's playing for them. And then I've thrown this one into the running order very late in the day. So if you're not prepared, don't worry. Can we just discuss, like, what do we think they'll be able to do next season? What does the outlook look like? What's the context for them next season? You sent a message to me earlier which said, I have loads of notes.
Yes.
So I'm excited already. Yeah, let's get into it. I think in terms of where they go next, the first thing that we have to probably look at is what they do in the summer. So what business are they going to do in the summer? Because I think if you look at, which I'll probably touch on a bit later, but if you look at Arsenal and Chelsea, we already know that
the wheels are in motion.
They're probably going to have there's going to be quite a lot of ins and outs, turnover, etc. They're going to be looking at some big names bringing in. One of the big names that Chelsea is reportedly looking at bringing in is Bunny Shaw.
Yes.
And that is in massive font. And my job number one for Manchester City is retaining Bunny Shaw. I do not think that not retaining Bunny Shaw is an option for Man City. That would be insane. Like, genuine. I don't have words for how insane that would be. Especially if she ends up at Chelsea.
Yeah.
You know, it's been reported that by Megan Fringer, who's just reporting just everything left, right and centre at the moment in the women's game, fair play to her, that Chelsea have offered her a contract around a salary around $1 million a year.
Yes.
And her preference is to stay at City, but they are yet to meet that. You know, there's a lot of discourse. Obviously, Chelsea fans are like chomping at the bit. They're very excited by this prospect. And like, I think there's a lot of people like, why wouldn't they meet that? Why wouldn't they do it? I think we were discussing this the other day and you were saying like there might be a bit of
brinksmanship with the
agent wrangling going on, just trying to get that little bit of extra juice out of City, which I do not blame them for at all.
Absolutely.
She's literally the best striker in the world. You know, when you say, when you see these, I know it's obviously like, it's content. People have to write content for people to read. But you know, you see the thing, is Bunny Shaw the best striker the WSL has ever seen?
Yeah.
Is Bunny Shaw the best striker in the world? Yes. It's always yes.
Yes.
We don't need think pieces. Yes. Yeah, and she's like reportedly also received offers from other clubs in Europe.
Yeah.
And the NWSL. Personally, I would just love to have her in the WSL for as long as possible. I think she is a great, great asset to the league. She's so so much fun to watch. And yeah, I think
you've said before as well, haven't you, that as well as obviously being a great player and obviously fantastic, persona to have in the league, I think that she brings a lot of personality as well, doesn't she? Which is great.
Yeah, and it's so underrated in the women's game.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
definitely. Like,
she's great and she knows it, and she likes
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in that she's talking about fielding offers from various different clubs, including Chelsea. So just to speak on her numbers then, so 19 goals and 4 assists currently in the WSL. And I think we were talking in the last episode when we were talking about sort of, other 8 strikers, we were talking about consistency and consistently putting up numbers. And she is, not only is she like a volume player, she puts those numbers up consistently every season. So
and will continue to do so.
Last season she scored a paltry 12 goals, but that was from just under 10 full 90s. And had she been available all season, she probably would have been on track for her usual 20 plus. And she scored the same amount of goals as Russo, who played nearly double the amount of minutes.
Yeah.
So
and she's in a Man City team that finished 4th as well that season. So.
And she's doing this every season. She is inevitable.
Yeah.
Like, it's unreal. Just as, I mean, we did sort of toy with doing this as a bit of an episode, it's like a thought experiment. Like, who would you possibly replace Bunny Shaw with? I think the answer to that question is no one. I think she's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
You probably need to bring in like 2 players to replace her properly. But I think the only player that you could look at as side by side is Eva Payor.
Yeah.
Who, comparable numbers, comparable levels of consistency. She's scored 16 goals and had 4 assists in Liga F, but she's got a scoring frequency of 69 minutes, which is insane.
Yeah. I think you do have to say, I think Payor, her numbers are inflated by the fact she's just playing in that Barcelona team. I think.
Yeah, but also, like, she was putting up big numbers at Wolfsburg as well, so it's not like she's like moved to Barcelona and it's like all of a sudden you're in this. Like, I mean,
anyone can score 30 goals in that team, sort of thing. Yeah, I do take that. I mean, I'd love to. I don't know if we just said we don't want Bunny to leave the WSL, and I do agree, but it would be fascinating to see Bunny dropped into that team, into the Barcelona team, and see how many goals she could score in a single
like
season.
Harry Kane at Bayern Munich. Yeah, and I thought you were going to say love to see Eva Payor in the WSL.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to that as well. I know a team.
I think we need some more. Like, somebody needs to push Bunny for the Golden Boot, right? At some point.
Yeah.
When she's not injured. Sorry, Russo, you're an excellent striker, but you're not Bunny Shaw. And then if you look across the other top European leagues, I mean, if you're looking at the NWSL as well, you're probably looking at someone like Banda or Chawinga.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've got Sophia Smith as well.
Sophia Wilson.
Sorry.
You always do that. No, it's fine. We know who you mean.
Yes, but obviously, we're still kind of waiting to see what kind of form she's going to be back in.
I think she just scored in her last game, against Angel City,
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think really, again, at the risk of being accused of being a Euro snob, I know obviously Bunny isn't European, but it feels like between her and Pior that those are the 2 best strikers in the world right now.
Yeah, for sure. There's obviously other names that you could sort of throw out there. Like, actually, would you like to guess who the top scorer is in the Premier League?
Oh my goodness! Well, it's not going to be Katoto. Katoto? No.
It's not a Leon player.
It's not a Leon player.
Nope. I think the thing is with Leon, they rotate so much and they've got so many good forwards that I think it's often that the top scorer is not a Leon player. Just throw a name out there. Until
I know who I mean. Is it Clara Matteo?
No, it's not Clara Matteo.
No,
I literally bang on about her all the time.
Stina Blackstenius.
It's Romy Lukter.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Romy Lukter is a player that I've mentioned before, and I think people should be aware of. She plays for the Netherlands. She plays for PSG currently, and there's been rumoured interest from I think Arsenal and Chelsea. And yeah, I think I would like to see her come into the WSL. But yeah, we'll get to this in a minute about whether they need a sort of able backup for Bunny. But
I mean, they do have Miedemar as well. It's worth saying.
But we'll talk about that in a minute. I know they've got Miedemar, Jesus. Well, yeah, so I'll talk more about this kind of thing in a minute. But so yeah, if you look at the Frauen Bundesliga, you've got Selina Cersei. Apparently, Wolfsburg tried to sign her, but that deal fell through. and her preference is again to come to the WSL. I feel like I've seen something about Man United being interested in her, but I don't know if I've like hallucinated that. So take that with a pinch of salt.
Blonde German forward and with their shooter.
And then Lineth Berenstein, obviously it's been confirmed that she'll be leaving Wolfsburg, and I think there was already rumours about WSL interest in her.
Yeah.
That might be someone they could look at. And then, you'd have to mention close to home, Russo gets signed a long-term contract. She's probably not going to be moving. Blackstenius has just re-signed with Arsenal.
Sam Kerr sounds like she's leaving.
Probably going to go to the NWSL. Yeah. Mallard, I think, is good, but probably nowhere near Bunny's level. And I can't remember what the situation is with her contract. Aggie Beaver-Jones, I believe her contract is up in the summer, but I would expect her to stay at Chelsea. Yeah. She's proper Chelsea, isn't she? It's like her childhood club.
Yes.
And she's going to, like, if Sam Kerr leaves as well, and Ramirez is reportedly going to Real Madrid, she'll be the one, I imagine.
Yeah.
Or she'll certainly have a lot more opportunity. So that was just a bit of a tangent on the sort of players that might even be able to enter the conversation in terms of replacing Bunny. But as I've sort of alluded to there as well, I think I do still believe they need to bring in someone else alongside her. I know they are very stacked from a forward perspective. If you're looking at Hemp, Fowler, Fagino, Carolyn, Benet, Miedemar, like those are all players. I mean, some of them are probably going to be more effective in the 9 or centrally than others, but I think those are all players that potentially are capable of playing there. But I think we've seen, last season when Bunny was injured, like Carolyn step in there. And Carolyn's a very, very good player. I think the season before when it was City looked being controlled, didn't they? And then Bunny got injured right towards the end, and then it all sort of wilted off.
They had that Arsenal home game, and I think Blackstenius scored.
And like Fowler was in the 9 then, and it was never as effective. Yeah. So I personally, and like I think like Miedemar as well. I think Miedemar now, I mean, obviously she's one of the best strikers that the WSL has ever seen, but like I think now the way that they've got her playing, I think in that system, in that team, she's more effective a bit deeper in the 10. She gives them a bit more control in midfield, like Russo playing with Blackstenius now. I just think they probably need another striker, a young striker to push Bunny. Not that she needs pushing much, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To push her, to compete with her, and to be able to step in and the levels not to drop too much if you lose Bunny or you have to rotate her, because obviously they're going to be looking at how many more games next season. If they've, get into the last stage of the Champions League and it becomes all congested, they're going to have to think about these sort of things.
Nomi Mouchon.
Well, that's I mean, not someone that I thought I put on my list here, but why not? I think, so I think you do need somebody potentially more up and coming like that, who's got a lot of potential, but potentially you're not seeing like numbers at the moment.
Who's not necessarily going to be too disappointed.
Because like some of the names that I've said there, like Romy Luxer or Lineth Berenstein even, are they going to want to go to City and play second fiddle? Probably not.
Particularly, I think it's worth pointing out that, for all of Juglert's achievements this season, you do have to say there are a couple of, we've kind of talked about it with LCL, it's not quite the same situation, but there's a couple of cautionary tales in that City team, mainly Sydney Lohman and Grace Clinton.
Yeah.
It's like, if you come in and you're not up to it, then, I'm not going to rotate you in and try and bleed you into the team. Come January, I'm going to sign someone else. And tough. And, that might, you've already touched on the Champions League. That's going to be they're going to need to rotate. They're going to need more depth than they've maybe had to use this season so far. But yeah, even so, I think that's a really salient point, because I think if I'm a player looking at that team, I'm thinking, this isn't going to be, rotate on, rotate off. A little bit like the situation with Blackstenius and Russo used to be, when, Blackstenius wasn't starting, but she was almost guaranteed to come on for 20 minutes here and there. Yeah, I think with Bunny, if she's fit, she plays, and it's tough to whoever's backing her up, really.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think, although I'd expressed confusion and sort of scepticism around the Miedemar-Bunny partnership, I think under Jeglerts, they've managed to make it click.
Yeah.
I think it's been working, and I just think they need another player that can step into that role, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And potentially some fans of a team in a European league or another league with better knowledge of sort of less prolific players can advise me of some potential candidates, but I just sort of like wrote down like players in the vein of like Beto Olsen, Shakira Martinez, Isabel Goodwin, someone who's an up and comer in a lower table team, mid-table team at the moment, but he's clearly very good.
Yeah.
And may want to step up.
I think Martinez is an interesting shout there. I linked to.
We've been pimping her out, haven't we?
I'd say it's West Ham.
We've been sending her to Chelsea, City, everywhere. But yeah, I just think that 100%.
Yeah.
Give her what she wants.
Yeah.
Double it.
Pay her.
But I think you've got to have a
contingency plan.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on.
I'm glad you agree. But you obviously you're going to agree with me that they need to retain her as well. You're not going to come through with some stupid hot take.
Hottest take.
The worst. No. I did see an opinion from someone online. I can't remember where it was, and it was just sort of like, I don't think Chelsea should sign her. And I was like, in what universe is that a logical opinion to have?
Yeah, insert Jose Mourinho like ripping his headphones off, looking at exasperated meme. Like, yeah. Yeah, no, I think any team in the world would be improved vastly by bringing Bunny in. I think you'd be mad not to try and sign her.
To that rabble. So, in terms of other business to do in the summer for City, I've got to be honest, I was looking at their current squad and their sort of potential outgoings and stuff like that. And other than, as we've touched on, retain Bunny Shaw, potentially look at an able backup, I don't think there's a massive amount that I'm looking at that they desperately need to do. I don't think like there's anywhere in their starting 11 where I'm looking and thinking they really lack quality in that area. And then there are areas where they've just got like particularly attack. And I think you could argue midfield as well, where they have got insane depth.
Yeah.
And they've just got some of the best players in the world in the starting 11. So if you look at like Hasegawa, Coffey, Miedemar, and then you've got Hemp, Fagino, Caroline, like that's insane. I think it's further back where they could potentially be looking at a little bit of depth. And also they are currently playing Alex Greenwood at left back.
Yeah.
And I think having her and Kanak on that side, they are exposed sometimes by that sort of lack of pace. When you look at the right-hand side of Rose and Kasparai.
Yeah.
And I think it's very fluid and you'll see Hasegawa sort of floating over that way to help out and stuff like that. But you don't want to be sacrificing too much of your midfield to cover that because you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I think I said, in an episode ages ago that Manchester City should look at Francisca Kett, who scored against Barcelona last weekend and then got sent off. I think that sort of player would be excellent for them. Just such an attacking minded fullback with bags of pace, endless running. Just she's brilliant.
Yeah.
And if you had that on both sides with Kasparai and Kett, there's no stopping you. Yeah, and I think like in terms of the centre backs as well. I mean, like I think Kanak and Rose have been a great pairing.
Yeah.
Really, really good pairing. But, if either one of them goes down, I know obviously you can bring Greenwood across. That's not that much of a downgrade, is it really? But I think, if you, again, you're looking at rotating, you're looking at a potential situation where you could even have both of those not available in the worst case scenario. Who do they have to step in at the moment? Really, you've got Pryor, who is an up-and-coming talent, but when you're looking at Champions League, I know she got sort of thrown in the deep end, didn't she, a few times?
Barcelona game.
I think that was Lazelle.
Oh, that was Lazelle, wasn't it?
But yeah, no, again, like Lazelle had an absolutely excellent game against Barcelona last season, the season before. But I think last season before. Last season. Get out, man. I've just got blocked this season out of in my mind. But yeah, I think Lazelle, I don't really think has played much at all this season.
No,
He's not really been available. And again, I think they've got one world class fullback and then one world class centre back sort of deputising as a left back. I know she plays left back for England, and we did actually say in our episode about who should play left back for England, it should be Alex Greenwood. But I just think have the same on both sides.
Yes, England can't go out and sign Francisca Kett, unfortunately, unless she's got a sort of long lost grandmother we don't know about, and also FIFA are willing to bend the rules on the fact she's already played for Germany.
Yeah. And then there is Leila Wahabi, but I think she seems to have massively fallen out of favour.
Yes.
But also with her being a little bit more attacking, there's maybe an argument that he prefers a more defensive left back, but I don't know.
This is all feeding nicely into my tactical
Okay,
set, but
we'll park that then.
yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anyone that you could throw out there? Or I haven't got anyone in terms of.
No, I've not been plucking names out. I think, someone we are about to talk about who has just this last couple of days been linked with City kind of quite unexpectedly, I think also falls into that bucket of interesting looking, more attacking left backs.
Yeah.
But no, I think, I agree with what you just said there. I think, central midfield, they're absolutely stacked. A deputy to Bunny probably wouldn't go amiss just in case. I really don't think they need any options in the forward departments at all other than that. And then I think goalkeepers, obviously no problems there.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Oh, okay.
I don't think there's problems, but we'll get to that.
And then, yeah, I just think another kind of very good defender, whether it's a centre back that means that Greenwood can then stay at left back and there's just a backup to Rose and Kanak, or a left back, which then means maybe Greenwood's gets shunted over and it's her and Rose or her and Kanak, or you've got a couple of combinations of those three. Yeah, I don't think anything other than
the other thing that we haven't mentioned is that they probably need a backup to Casper as well.
I mean, that would be, probably.
Like, again, is that Lazelle? But we don't know. Like I say, she hasn't played pretty much all season. I think she played in October or something.
Vina Reuter
again. Vina Reuter again. I don't know. Just doesn't seem to be available, or he's not in the squad. I don't know. It might be a Sydney Lohman situation in which she is available, but she's just not being picked.
Yeah.
Because I did look earlier, and they have actually got the biggest squad. I didn't realise.
It doesn't surprise me.
And they've also got the second youngest squad.
Yeah. I think it's easy to forget how many of those elite players they've got are still pretty young. I think compared to an Arsenal, where again, I'm going to touch on a couple of these players, but that a lot of their core stars are kind of late 20s, early 30s. Yeah, I think Kasper is 25. You've got Hasegawa. You've got a lot of players who are sort of 27 and under, and it's easy to forget just because they're so established and already they're so good. We're just kind of accustomed to thinking that they must be older than they are.
Lauren Hemp's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's great example.
For how long she's been around, how long she's been at that level, 22.
Yeah. Disgusting.
So I think we've sort of touched on slightly midfield and what's going on here. So. Obviously they've brought Coffee in. Coffee wasn't available against Brighton, neither was Miedemar, and I just felt they lacked some sort of solidity and control there. So obviously
they didn't look very caffeinated.
With Hasegawa being given more of a free, fluid role, they need players to sort of lock that down. I think Laura Brink-Brown's had a good season, but I think whenever I've seen them play with Sam Coffey, it's just been
it's a different beast.
Okay,
yeah,
control.
Yeah.
Like I say, Clinton doesn't really seem to have worked out. We've mentioned her. And neither has Lohman. So Laura Coombs is 35 and is out of contract in the summer. So
have they already announced she's leaving?
I don't know.
I might be wrong about that. I'm sure.
Is that a rumour or?
Yeah, I'm sure I saw something
surprised,
about. I mean, like you say, she's 35. She played more under Jaglert's in the last couple of seasons than she was under Taylor.
I think she's probably played. I haven't checked this, so it might be completely wrong. She might play more than Clinton or Lohman.
Yeah, no, I assume she has, but yeah, and she's still filling an important role there. But yeah, I think she'll probably be departing.
So other potential outgoings. So we mentioned the goalkeepers. So Chiara Keating is out of contract in the summer.
Right. Okay.
Now that is an interesting one because we've talked about that before, and obviously the sort of meteoric rise to notoriety that Chiara Keating had in the 23-24 season when Ellie Roebuck was injured.
Yeah.
Injured, I suppose.
Unavailable
through illness because she had a bloody stroke, bless her. And so Keating stepped in and had that absolutely incredible season, got the Golden Glove, and then less good. And they bought.
She was doing a bit of a job share with Yamashita.
Yeah,
and it felt like
under Gareth Taylor, it was a bit of and then
this season
it's been Yamashita all the way. Keating's been like the cup keeper.
Yeah,
I think she's come in a couple of times. Obviously, when Yamashita was away at the Asian Cup.
Yes,
and then I don't know if she's been injured. But anyway, obviously she's come in and deputised, which I still think Chiara Keating has a very, very high floor and a very, very high ceiling. Maybe not a very high floor. maybe that's not the right way to say it,
Uh,
because she does have a bit of a wobble, but she is very young.
no, I think that's fair
But
enough.
no, I think she has a very, very high ceiling. I think she's a very, very good, very, very good young keeper. And I think she deserves to play more minutes. And I think she probably deserves to go somewhere and be number one.
And
I
then
think
there's also the England situation
I
where,
think she's a confidence player. I think it would benefit her from reps.
yeah,
Yeah, her going somewhere and getting consistent minutes and being number one, I think would do her absolute wonders.
yeah,
And I think it would be really great to see, like, I think it'd be great to see a proper fight for the
for the
for the
England
for
shirt.
the England
Yeah,
shirt.
I agree. I think
Because
she's
I think it doesn't. I don't think it behooves a keeper to know that they are de facto.
no,
Like, I think they need a bit of pressure.
yeah,
So I think it would be great to have a proper scrap for that
yeah.
number one shirt.
I think she's obviously she's dropped out of the conversation for England entirely at the moment.
Yeah.
Ellie Roebuck's in there as the third choice keeper right now. You have to say fair enough because she is playing for Villa.
hmm
But yeah, I think I hadn't realised Keating was out of contract. I do. I think potentially the only situation that could arise is if Jiglerts turns around and says, "Well, we're guaranteed whatever it is 8 group stage Champions League games. We're probably going to qualify and play some more, and you will be the Champions League keeper."
Hmm.
That could be a carrot to get her to stay. But
I,
I do agree if it's still like Yamashita's number one, so
I also think, does she deserve an opportunity to fight for that shirt as well? Because, like, Yamashita's not infallible.
no, she's not.
Like, she has the odd game. So
I mean, yeah, it's just we've talked about it a lot before, obviously in England context and various other teams as well, haven't we? Where it's just it's unfortunate. It's the one position where it's not even like you're going to get 20 minutes at the end of each game to prove yourself. And particularly in a team like City, where a lot of the time the goalkeeper's not having to do a huge amount, and Yamashita, if she's still getting a nod for the most important games, and if she's not having any major mess ups, then it's like,
Mhm.
well, what chance has Keating really got to
Well,
force the issue?
yeah, and
Unfortunately.
they're not really playing out from the back
No,
as
no,
like, they're not really doing that anymore.
no.
So it's not like you can impress like Hampton would for Chelsea, like with the ball,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
So, like, so it's like, I suppose if it's one thing, isn't it? Like, if let's say if Kiara Keating wants to leave and wants to push for a move, and she's out of contract, there's nothing they can do, is there? But I think for her, it would be the right thing to go somewhere and try. But then again, I don't know where that is. I mentioned LCL earlier in the season, but if they're committing to the bit and signing Mary Earps,
Keating can go to PSG.
maybe. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
But I think City should be trying to sweet talk her
Oh,
and
yeah,
trying to keep
absolutely.
hold of her, because I think they are, in terms of who their number one is and who their backup is, I think they're probably one of the most blessed
Oh, yeah, totally.
in the league.
I mean,
Like,
we said it again. It's not quite analogous, but we talked about this again. I think on the podcast when Leicester had both Lisa Kopp
you
and
know,
Inga Leipzig, and it was like
when they were
it
like
was
fairly good.
yeah, it was great. But we again, I don't know if we said it on the podcast. We were just saying privately. But when Kopp did leave the Spurs, we were kind of like, yeah, fair enough, because
Yeah, that was not a
we knew it
sustainable
wasn't
situation.
sustainable.
Yeah,
They're both too good to be sat on the bench.
yeah.
But yeah, it might just be one of those where everyone just says, you know what, we can't give Keating the football she needs, and it's fair enough. But I do agree, if I'm City, I'd be trying to persuade her to stay, because she is the best backup keeper in the league by a country mile at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone who can. Well, there's no backup keepers that have also won the WSL Golden Glove in recent.
That is true. I was going to mention Annika Borba, but
I think Borba's a decent keeper, but Keating, like I say, she's young in terms of potential. At least I think she's the one. But yeah,
and yeah, the only other one is Wahhabi. I just don't think there's no question that she's fallen out of favour, unfortunately. But yeah, I would not be surprised if she moved on. And I don't think, like, listen, I think she's a very good player, but like, I don't think they've suffered by not playing her.
no.
So it's not like I'm looking at that and thinking, why the hell isn't Wahhabi playing? You're really missing something there.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of them where mutually like part ways. So as we've sort of concluded there's not mega amounts that they really need to do, which sort of vaguely, tenuously leads us to my next point, which is, do they actually need Beth Mead and Katie McCabe on, what day is it today? Tuesday, Wednesday? Wednesday. Monday. It was Monday, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was reported by Megan Fringer again. So she's reporting everything in The Athletic that City have a strong interest in Beth Mead and Katie McCabe. So Katie McCabe also reportedly has interest from Chelsea, which I sort of understand but also don't understand at the same time. It's just not a player that I thought Chelsea would go for.
Having seen...
Is it sort of like... I just basically, I think it's because at the moment she's not particularly popular with Chelsea fans for obvious
I
reasons.
was just going to say, having seen the meltdowns
it's
that
like,
Chelsea fans have had, been like, absolutely not, no way.
is it sort of like is Bompastor sort of looking at her and thinking, I'd rather have her on my team than playing against my team?
Or
Like,
is it
make my enemy my friend.
Is it like when the government roll out, like, do you want us to double train fare? And everyone says, this is a fucking awful idea. And they're like, we wouldn't have ever done that. It was just a leaked thing. It was a disgruntled public servant.
But I think I've seen some, what I feel were wild opinions on this, really, in terms of like, why on earth would they do that? Like, that's insane. It's sort of like, not explicitly saying this, but they're both washed, like, go for like young players, exciting players. I think it's, on the face of it, it's surprising and slightly confusing move for them to make. But also, like, but I sort of sat with it for a little bit, thought about it, and I was like, do you know what? Kind of get it.
Yeah.
Because as I mentioned before, if you look at the average age of their squad, it's actually the lower end of the WSL. It's the second lowest, or youngest, I guess. 25. Do you want to? Can you guess at the only squad that's got the average youngest age? No, the average youngest squad.
Would have been tempted
youngest squad
to say Leicester before the January business.
That's Leicester have now got the oldest squad because of Rachel Williams.
Right. Okay.
Like, oldest average age.
Okay. Spurs.
Brighton.
24.5.
I believe that's correct. I just sort of scanned the Soccer Donna thing.
Yeah.
And then if you think about the situation that they're heading into next season with the Champions League, there's a lot of very experienced players in there. There's also players that are a bit younger and haven't maybe played at that level or played like consistently at that level. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you look at that squad, it's very young, and a lot of them have got experience at Champions League level, and they've won Euros, Asian Cups, etc. But stating the obvious, Beth Mead and Katie McCabe have won the Champions League.
Yes.
They're both very important, have been very important leadership players for both club and country. Like, Katie McCabe is literally captain of Ireland. Beth Mead has been a stalwart in that England squad. I'll get to a bit of that in a minute. I think they're both very versatile and they can drop into different positions. So we've spoken about City needing a bit more depth at the back, needing more of an attacking left back. You get that with Katie McCabe, but what you also get is somebody that can apparently, we've learnt this season, drop into centre back without batting an eye.
Yeah.
She also plays more as a winger for Ireland. So if you need someone short on wingers for whatever reason, you need someone in a pinch, you can throw her in. I've seen like Beth Mead. As we've spoken about, they're absolutely stacked for wingers. Why would you bring in another winger, especially one who's 30, when they're all like, I think, sub 25 in that team? In terms of Beth Mead, again, we've seen her sometimes drop into more of a midfield role this season for Arsenal when she's needed to, or she inverts anyway. So it's like, she's comfortable in the middle of the pitch. She's never really been like a touchline hugging winger, has she? Like, and that's not really how City play with their wingers anyway. So it's like, and then I think what both of those players give you, they both have the ability to change a game because they've both got a bit of flair.
Yeah.
But they also have the ability to lock a game down.
Yes.
They have the ability to control a game. They're both very good in terms of retaining the ball. Obviously McCabe is very good defensively, but I also think Mead offers you a lot defensively as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Out of possession. So, yeah, I think, for me, from that perspective, it makes sense.
Yeah.
The math may not be mathing from a financial perspective, because presumably they've got to pay Bunny Shaw what Bunny Shaw is owed, quite rightly, and then pay probably a fair whack of salary for McCabe and Mead. And if they choose to do the latter over the former, then I will be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But if they do both, I have no issue with it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analysis. My analysis on both of those, on Mead and McCabe, was going to be a lot more simple. And I think it's just, right now, Chelsea look like they're going to be going into a transition phase. Arsenal look like your main competitors. So, yeah, if you can take two players off Arsenal, who I know McCabe was already kind of, said to be leaving, but two players who play a lot of minutes for them. I think Arsenal, there was obviously that LCL interest in Mead last summer, but it sounds like, again, that Arsenal would probably ideally want to retain her. But yeah, I think if I'm City, I'm just looking at, well, they're our biggest rival for the title. Why not take two players who played an awful lot of minutes off them?
I've actually seen something quite interesting. I think it might have been in Megan Fringer's piece, but that apparently Beth Mead's been offered a contract by Arsenal,
Yeah.
but City were willing to offer a longer contract, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
But so I think the other thing that I want to point out is that people were talking. I don't think there's any question that like McCabe would probably get game time because, like we've spoken about, they might need an actual left back or someone who's got a bit more pace, a bit more attacking minded than Greenwood is. But I think people are like, well, how much game time is Mead going to get?
Yes.
City.
Yeah.
And I've seen things like, well, she needs minutes for the World Cup to get into the World Cup squad. And I think that, well, first of all, like, I think she was getting less minutes at Arsenal anyway. I think her contributions have just been more memorable.
Yeah.
Getting the assist in the Champions League final, scoring against Chelsea. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think her role in the England team is diminishing as well. Like, I think if all of our attacking options are fit, I don't think she's starting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's my belief that, Serena Wiegmann talks about players having credit in the bank. And I think she's basically like a black titanium card holder at this
untouchable point. Yeah.
Like, if she... I don't think and it depends how next season goes as well, obviously, but I don't think we're blessed with an endless supply of like top quality wingers and forwards that Serena's going to trust.
Yeah. And
I think if she plays 5 minutes next season, she's going to the World Cup.
Yeah.
That's my belief.
No, I'd agree. And I think,
Look at Georgia Stanway, who like barely played last season for Bayern Munich because of an injury.
Yeah.
She had not set foot on the pitch for Bayern Munich in 2025.
Yeah.
Played like half an hour in a friendly for England, and she went to the Euros.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Beth Mead, if Beth Mead is fit and available, and there's not a queue of players ahead of her, she's going to the World Cup. Like at the moment, there's like two players ahead of her.
Kelly, James. I mean, I know
James has 3 players ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
not sure that many.
Whether Kelly is ahead of her or not, I don't know. But no, I totally agree, and I think as well that all the stuff about credit in the bank and that kind of stuff, that's stuff you need to worry about when you are thinking tournaments and stuff ahead. But as we know, I think the World Cup, it's sounding more and more like Wiegmann won't stay on after that. So I think those kind of arguments.
Is it? Where's that come from?
Well, her contract's up, isn't it? There's no rumours about her staying.
Shit, yeah. Oh, fucking hell, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about a post-Wiegmann England.
No.
I'm already suffering enough, Matt. It's 10 to 7.
Well, I was just going to say.
There's an absolute bloodbath about to kick off in North London. I don't want to start having to think about the prospects of England without Serena Wiegmann. Thank you very much.
I was just going to say, I think, going into that World Cup, we said it on the podcast before, I think for her, she no longer needs to worry about keeping people happy or, keeping players rotated or warm or stuff. She will take the squad to that World Cup that she wants to. And if anyone wants to be like, well, actually, I played more minutes than Beth Mead, she's like, well, it's not my problem.
She's not going to be worried about legacy and all that stuff.
She's going to
win this one.
Take the players who she thinks will win. And I think Beth Mead is going to be one of them.
And also the other club that Beth Mead has been linked with over the last 2 seasons has been London City Lionesses. And I'm not being funny. I'm not sure she's guaranteed minutes there. Not because she doesn't deserve to be in that team, but because they've got so many fucking players. It's like bloody line-up bingo. I don't know who's going to start for them every week.
And as we said,
I don't think they know.
As we said on our Other 8 episode most recently, their best player this season has been Freya Godfrey, who plays in exactly the same position.
Well, precisely.
So, yeah.
So I think, to summarise a very long rant there, these are 2 players that are still playing very well at the highest possible level. They have both played in the Champions League this season. Katie McCabe literally played a full 90 against Lyon on Sunday in 2 positions.
Yeah.
I'm sure Beth Mead would have featured had she been available. Like, I feel like some people were acting like City were like going out to like sign fucking Rachel Williams or something. Like, no, these are 2 very, very good players still.
we've heard this discourse, not from City fans, but from the Chelsea side of things. I know that the main protest about them and McCabe is, I think, their history with McCabe. But we have heard this. Oh, why are we signing this player? They're too old. We should focus on youth. And as you've already pointed out, City are already a very youthful squad. They don't really need to add more up and coming prospects.
No, they've got
More
plenty of them.
potential. They've got that. But look at like Lucy Bronze going to Chelsea. When she went, there was a lot of kind of, oh, do we, is this the best we can do? She's past it. And, I know obviously this season's not been a vintage Chelsea season, but she was a huge part of why they won the league last season. She has been one of their better players this season, without a question. So it's like, yeah, I do.
And she played the Euros on a broken leg.
Yeah. And I just think the discourse around player ages can sometimes go a bit silly. And I think it's like, yeah, I mean, yes, I'm sure there's a promising 17-year-old out there you could bring in instead. But like, are you really going to suffer by having God forbid, a 30-year-old in your team? Like,
I think this is because, particularly online, and this is not meant to be offensive. I'm just stating facts. Particularly online, I think the fan base and the vocal fan base skews younger.
Yeah.
So to them, like 30 is like ancient. But as someone who is 35, please, we can still do stuff. Just because you reach the age of 30, like your legs don't fall off.
Yeah.
Like,
well, again, look at Lucy Bronze. Like, it's.
I didn't start like being able to run until I was 34.
Yes.
I had not run for more than 5 minutes until I was 34, and now I can run 5K on a treadmill. Yeah. So if I can do that, Katie McCabe and Beth Mead can go and tear it up at City. So that was very long preamble on players and transfer business. So would you like to give us your view on the tactical side and what they need to evolve, where they need to evolve? And I'm very aware that we've been rambling for a long time, and you said you've got a lot of notes.
No, it's fine.
I apologise.
A lot of the stuff I've kind of covered we've already kind of touched upon and hinted at, so I think it's all good. But looking at City overall tactically, I think next season they may well still have enough to win the league without doing anything in terms of the tactics. And yeah, I've got in my notes here, particularly if Arsenal lose Mead and McCabe and don't replace them adequately, because it doesn't look like City are going to mount much of a charge. United, I think, are still.
So you mean Chelsea?
Sorry, it does. Yeah, doesn't look like Chelsea are going to mount a charge next season unless something pretty dramatic happens. I think Arsenal are the ones to really kind of challenge City there. But yeah, I mean, one cast iron certainty in football is that nothing ever lasts forever. I think tactically, particularly, in recent times, we've seen teams having to evolve and change faster and faster and faster because more, the data is better, the opposition analysts are better, opposition teams have analysts, which they didn't always have, and it's, constantly moving and updating and changing now, where it's, if one team does this, then another team will find a way of countering them, so they'll tweak it, so they have to tweak it, and nothing ever stands still for very long. As we've already mentioned, de Glertz this season, he's utilised the same 4-2-3-1 and in a lot of cases the same players that Gareth Taylor was in the previous seasons, but he's obviously granted players more freedom. We obviously watched that opening match of the season when City played Chelsea, and we're watching Hasegawa suddenly appearing in positions we'd never seen her in before and having shots. I think she's probably the most notable example of this, but then you do also have Caspry, who I think has been given way more freedom to bomb forward, and she's had 3 goals and 7 assists, which is by far and away the most productive in terms of attacking numbers she's ever had, and I think arguably player of the season for the WSL.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. That's got to be like the best numbers for a fullback in the WSL, surely.
In terms of this season, yeah, comfortably. So I think at the start of the season, the increased flexibility that City had felt like their main weapon. Like, I think what had happened under Taylor was, City had this kind of like mechanical precision, which against a lot of teams was more than enough to blow them away. But
it's like that thing, is it's like what they're going to do, but stopping them is another thing.
Yes, and I think that the issue was the best teams could stop them.
Yeah,
or a team could just put in a really, really backs to the wall, stodgy defensive effort, and sometimes it would be enough. And City would keep banging their heads against the wall, plan A, plan A, plan A. And I think, yeah, the big difference at the start of the season, at least, was City just had so many threats because not only are you trying to deal with Bunny and Miedemar and the two wingers, but suddenly there's Hasegawa bombing
Crashing the
forward.
box.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, I think, for most teams, they basically just panicked, went into instant try and just defend and contain City mode rather than attacking them or anything like that, and getting basically not being able to contain them.
You kind of shift into like man marking rather than like like zonal marking.
Yes.
Like it just becomes a case of like they just drag everybody, so many players out of position. So many players committed forward.
It's
too fucking late.
You've got Kasparai bombing. You know, if you try and block Fujino, well, there's Kasparai. You know, if the cross comes in and you mark over on the box, Kasparai's there at the back post, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, City obviously before the winter break, City won all but one game in the league, which and that first game was the one they didn't win. They lost against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and they won the XG battle in every single one of those games, including the Chelsea game that they lost and probably deserved more out of. But I do think the flexibility and the freedom they're trying to play with has come at a bit of a cost. And I think for me, it feels like teams are now becoming more aware of the best form of defence against City might be attack. I think that the sort of byproduct of them being more kind of free flowing and moving forward is if you can break that, if you can take possession off them, if you can press them, then quite often they're not in that sort of rigid structure that Taylor was using.
I mean, I think like the Brighton game was a blueprint.
Perfect example. Perfect example. You know, that Brighton were pressing them. City were trying to press forward, but just if you were able to nick the ball off them, they were never in the sort of structure or shape that you'd expect from, you know, would have expected from them when they had Gareth Taylor in charge, basically. And I think City players know that as well. I think they feel less confident defending than they used to. And if teams can attack them and press them, then it forces them back into that more rigid shape or even catches them out like Brighton were able to. And yeah, just having a look at the numbers, I think what I caveat all this by saying City is still a very good team. It's not like they've been found out and have collapsed. And I think, like I say, I think they can probably play exactly the same way next season. And the player quality alone would be enough to probably carry them to the league title again.
Yeah.
But pre-winter break in those games where they won all but one of them, they're averaging 0.8 XG against. So very, very stingy. And since the winter break, that number's jumped up to 1.42. So it's nearly doubled. Obviously, your Brighton game, great example again. That was the first time they've conceded 3 in the league this season. But just, I think generally the trend seems to be a little bit like, I think that the game they lost at the Emirates was also very interesting, where I think Arsenal's kind of anticipation of what City were going to do and their willingness to press them basically meant City were almost like too frightened to attack as they normally would, and the net result was they just never really looked like getting back into that game when they fell behind.
But then I also think like on the flip side, and this is maybe a mentality thing more than it is a tactical thing, but I think that what struck me against Brighton is, yes, they had some very, very good chances early on and probably should have been 3-0 up within about 20 minutes.
Less than that.
Obviously, Ndozi's a great keeper, but I think that when watching them go forward again and again and again in that game, it was quite end to end in the end, but like every time they got forward, it just looked so rushed. It was like they were desperate. They were like, we need to try and get the title done today. We need to try and get the title done today. I don't think they could technically mathematically do it, but like, as in like, we need to try and get it.
Yeah,
you know.
they could have knocked Chelsea out of the race and just...
we need to get this done. We need to get this done. We need to get this done. And I think that sort of mentality of like, first thought is forward, first thought is goal, is really good in some situations, not so much in others. Look at last night in PSG versus Bayern Munich. That was a very open game, but what if that's a league game, like, and it's balanced on a knife edge and it's that open, like that, how does that help you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you can be on the wrong end of that as well. You can be on the wrong end of it being so open and being so fast forward, like go. Don't get me wrong, like listeners of this podcast will know me and Matt both like more direct football. I like fast build up. I don't like to watch teams pissing about at the back. So I'm all for this, but I think, like a little bit more, I agree, like a little bit more control.
Well, yeah, I think there's a few ways we can approach. I mean, I will one more stat, and it is
Sorry, I went off in a bit of a tangent.
no, it's all right. It is the most damning stat of all. They even conceded 1.5 XG to Leicester when we went to the Joy Stadium. I didn't have the heart to go through all of Leicester's games this season to see, but I think that's possibly the most XG we've generated in a single game, which is mad to think about. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
obviously we didn't score any of that XG, but basically, it's not to say that City aren't still very good. I just think there's a trend in the numbers there, a little trend to suggest that teams might be getting more comfortable with dealing with them. And, if they decide to try and sit still tactically rather than being proactive and looking for the next iteration of what they're trying to do, it could prove costly. So that brings us on to kind of a lot of the stuff we've already been talking about. So, the link to McCabe is very interesting. As we said, Wahhabi's fully dropped out of the picture. Greenwood's been playing left back. I do think of Kaspar's 10 goal involvements this season, only 3 of them have come since the winter break. I do think teams have kind of got wise to that aspect of, basically when City have possession, Kasper bombs forward and every, the remaining 3 defenders shade over and it's almost a back 3. And obviously for Greenwood, that suits her down to the ground because she is a centre back, fundamentally.
So they can target that left-hand side. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's more that teams know that not much is going to come down. Obviously, stuff will still come down the left-hand side because that's where Hemp plays, but it's not like a situation where you need to double up.
Yeah,
because
you're not going to have like overlapping underfucking
exactly,
runs off the
exactly.
side. Yeah.
And I think teams have sort of cottoned onto that. They're putting more emphasis on their left-hand side because they know Kasper is going to be bombing forward.
Yeah.
So I think the link to McCabe is interesting because I think that might be City have recognised what's happening there. Kasper's numbers and output are sort of dropping because teams are getting wise to that. So it's like, well, if we can get a bit more balance between the fullbacks, if we can have a McCabe in there, then that nullifies that attempt to nullify us.
Yeah.
Because you can't just be like, well, we'll just worry about our left-hand side and hope that we can go one-on-one with Hemp and deal with her. Because then if you've got McCabe overlapping, then it's like, or, like say, Francisca Kett or whoever they end up bringing in there. If it's a more attacking fullback than Alex Greenwood, then there's some interesting kind of opportunities that opens up. That's another thing for teams to solve.
I don't think that is something that they do. I know I said earlier, like, I don't think they've lost massive amounts from not playing Wahhabi, but like you say, like, they've sort of, that's by design, I think, because everyone sort of shifts around, so they want a more defensive left back, essentially operate as a third centre back in that situation. But whereas, like, if you had more balance and both were able to, one goes, one stays, or whatever, or you just say fuck it and both go. Like I say, it's just an extra. An
extra problem for the other team.
Threat in your.
It is, I think the natural kind of, if I was playing devil's advocate with myself there, I'd say, well, why didn't they play Wahhabi? But I honestly think that might just come down to Jaglert's signed Rose, really, really likes her. Kanafka obviously came in last season, but has, I think, really, really hit the ground running. If he's like, I have to play those 2, you're obviously also not going to drop Alex Greenwood. So it's like a kind of, unfortunately for Wahhabi, I'm willing to sacrifice what Wahhabi would give us going forward to get my 3 best defenders on the pitch.
Yeah, potentially. But like I say, it might also be by design.
Yes. Yeah.
It might be a Serena Biegman.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something we've seen quite often, really, where you have the attacking, what one fullback is more attacking than the other. It's asymmetric. And then, when that fullback goes forward, you shift over into a back 3. So maybe that's what's going on there. Yeah. But I think, bringing McCabe in would give them a more potent option down the left. And maybe you could do something where you've got, say, McCabe and Kasper, and then when one of them goes, the other one stays and they shift into a back 3. Obviously, we've seen McCabe literally playing centre-back recently, so we know she can do that as well. And I think Kasper can probably do it as well. So
I think that's confident.
It's not ideal, but I think for City, how much defending is she really going to need to do when in that kind of scenario?
True.
But anyway, so that's one aspect of that I think they might be looking to evolve. Again, very fortuitous that just a couple of days ago they've suddenly been linked with McCabe. I think the other area, and again you've already touched on this, that they might look to utilise more is obviously Sam Coffey's only come in January. She's had a few kind of injuries, so she hasn't been like just playing every single minute. But I think what they might try and do if they go down that path of having, fullbacks more kind of aggressively bombing forward all the time on both sides is what actually, ironically, Man City men have ended up doing the last couple of seasons, where they went through a phase of not really advancing the fullbacks too much. Now they're doing that more often, like Nico O'Reilly keeps scoring headers and stuff like that. But what they have to mitigate the kind of deficiencies that does give them is Rodri in midfield as an anchor, and even like bringing Bernardo Silva in as basically a sort of a Hasegawa-esque pressing defensive midfielder, which obviously wasn't his usual role. But I think City women could end up doing exactly the same thing, basically have Coffey in the sort of Rodri role, have oh god, I'm confused myself. Hasegawa in the Silva playing the Hasegawa role.
Is then
But
is then what?
No.
Turkey?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, basically, I think that's maybe an area where, because Blinkilde Brown and Hasegawa, neither of them are particularly like physically imposing, or Hasegawa we've talked about so much on this podcast and what she brings you defensively, and it's a very underrated part of her game. But I do think Coffey just brings it up a level. And I think if you've got Sam Coffey in that midfield and the instructions are clear, as a sort of midfield destroyer,
lock it down. She will.
Yeah, she can lock it down, and it will just give everyone else the sort of the freedom to attack forward. So that's my kind of rough prediction of how I think City. It's not a huge evolution, and to be fair, they've won the league. Well, they will win the league at what looks like a bit of a canter. They don't need to go crazy and throw, completely start from scratch. But I think that would be my prediction about what they might try and do more regularly. Because I don't think they need to worry about going forward. They're still scoring loads of goals. They're generating loads of chances.
I don't think that's an area where they need to be concerned, is it? They're not struggling to create, really.
Unless if Bunny was to leave, I think that would pose an entirely different kind of tactical.
Again, if Bunny does leave, put this whole podcast in the bin. It's like, you've just fucked it.
Yes.
So with all that in mind then, and if we assume Bunny's staying, I think that's the big caveat. And maybe if we assume McCabe and Mead join as well, what do we think about the prospects for next season? I know we haven't finished this season yet, but I just thought there was some interesting context for next season, because, as you've said, Chelsea and Arsenal are looking like they're going to have to do a bit of a rebuild job. I think I agree with you that Arsenal are the ones, like, they're going to be ones to watch, I think, with some of the players that they're rumoured to be bringing in.
Yeah.
And I think I was speaking to you about this the other day. Like, I think Rennie Slagers has really come into her own this season.
Yeah.
In her first full season as manager, I think she's an excellent manager. Yeah. So I think that's going to be one to watch, that storyline unfolding. But it's how much this changing of the guard, because there is going to be a bit of a change of the guard. McCabe and Mead are massive players for Arsenal if they leave. And then we're talking about other players as well potentially leaving, who've been there a long time. And they've got bedding new players, and there's going to be a lot of pieces to put together there. Chelsea, again, we know there's work to be done there, certainly. Again, a lot of characters going out the door by the sounds of it. One has unexpectedly, perhaps prematurely, some will think, like, announced that she's retiring today, Millie Bright, who has not featured as prominently for them this season. Potentially, I feel many Chelsea fans were feeling a bit frustrated with her both on the pitch and off it, but you cannot deny that was your club captain. Like, that is a big player to lose in the building. So I just think those two I'm watching with interest.
Yeah.
I think Manchester United, I think, is an interesting one, because I think by the looks of it, it may change, but by the looks of it at the moment, they will not have Champions League.
Yeah, I meant to mention Manu earlier when I was talking about the City permutations, but
that really played into their hands last season.
Right, and City's hands this season.
It's exactly. Massive. We saw United get the edge on City last season because they didn't have Champions League.
Yeah.
Obviously City had their horrific injuries, and then like I say, United were able to get the jump on them a few times. So it's like, could that shift again because of that dynamic? And if we look at Chelsea and Arsenal, are going to have to potentially play extra Champions League qualifying games as well, unless Arsenal win the Champions League again, possible. So it's like these factors could all come into play, because I still think, like, in the women's game, when you don't have massive squads and you don't have the fitness levels and that you have in the men's game. I mean, it's an issue in the men's game, isn't it? Like, we're talking about, Arsenal are playing tonight. They're trying to win the league. They've got injuries they're dealing with and stuff like that. So, but do you know what I mean? It's like these are still factors that you have to look at how the other teams are going to sort of be.
Absolutely.
And how, like, more fixtures, more stuff is going to affect them and how it's going to affect you. But Spurs could be coming up on the rails as well. Maybe London City Lionesses, jury's out, I think, there, but you never know. And I just think we'll discuss this in a later episode as well. But I think having another 2 teams come into the WSL, I think the level is just going to keep going up and going up and going up and going up, and there are going to be no guarantees. I think it's going to be less and less guarantees, mainly because I don't think Leicester are going to be in the league, so there's not going to be like an easy 3 points anymore. But yeah, so I just think it will be interesting to see how they manage Champions League. If they can keep everyone fit, they can keep the depth, jugglers can rotate well. Because like you say, it's like if they keep playing like they're playing with the players that they've got next season and they add a couple more in, they'd probably win the league again, if not be up there, top 3. But it's like, that's all very well and good, but you add in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And you add in the rotation and there's fixture congestion. And especially this time of year as well, where you've got the running. Like, if you look at like City's running now, they've got 2 games left. Whereas Arsenal have got Champions League and they've got to play 4 games.
Yeah.
Like, they're playing right now. I imagine it's probably about 4-0, but at this point. But
you know,
they're probably cruising.
If they were neck and neck with City right now in the league, you'd make City favourites just because Arsenal having to
so it's
deal
like
with all this.
When you've got that extra stuff, like if you get to those last stages, if you're City and you get to those last stages next season, does that affect you? Almost certainly.
Yeah.
And it's like, can they compete at that level? We haven't seen Jeglert's City compete at that level. We saw them do an admirable job under Taylor, but they couldn't make it through to the latter stages of the competition. So, and I still don't know. There's a big question mark over that for me, because I don't know. I don't have a read on them in that competition yet.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's like, and like teams can massively surprise you. Like Man United massively surprised me this season with how good they were in the Champions League. They didn't look out of place at all until the last stages, unfortunately, when they just looked a little bit tired. But there was other factors there. But I think if they can strengthen whilst building on this very, very good core that they've had this season, and maybe, like you said, a few little tactical things here and there, so you're keeping it fresh.
Yeah.
Never know, let them know your next move. They're still going to be they'll always be a force to be reckoned with while they've still got the players that they've got.
Yeah.
But I just think if they can keep this head of steam up, get their hands on that trophy, fine. I think that's been a bit of a monkey on their back as well.
Yeah.
We sometimes talk about Arsenal. They've got a bit that monkey on their back of like not winning the league. This is the women, and the men have got it as well.
Yeah.
Actually, Arsenal have won the league more recently than City have. City haven't won it in 10 years. So I think as well, coming so close 23-24 season, I think it's just going to be like a big weight off their shoulders to finally get their hands on it again.
Yeah.
And again, teasing potential future episodes, I think we could be looking at a bit of a shift from the Chelsea dynasty to the Manchester City dynasty.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said there. I think
pretty much all of the pieces that we all thought we knew were there have come together.
Yeah.
And they're just there.
Yeah.
And I can see the picture.
Yeah, and as you said, the age of the squad, if they can keep everyone happy and keep everyone there, then there's no reason why this squad can't at least have 3-4 more seasons together. Like, there's no player who's going to be like, oh yeah, they'll be over the hill by that point. Obviously, you never know what will happen. You never know what moves other teams will make. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's not a hot take to say. I think that they'll be absolutely favourites for the league next season. I think Arsenal.
I think the big whacking caveat on what I've just said is Arsenal, and I don't think you still don't ever rule out Chelsea.
No, I think Chelsea are probably the most interesting looking team going to next season, because it's just going to be it's almost when, again, we're going back a little way here, but when we were talking about the transition from Emma Hayes to Sonia Bonpastor, we were saying it's going to be a huge thing culturally, it's going to be massive, all of this kind of stuff, and none of that really transpired.
Domestic trouble.
But it feels like now we are at that point, because so many of those established like Chelsea lifers, like I know they're not lifers, but Millie Bright, Sam Kerr, Neve, so
Brighton.
Guru Wright, and so many players who've been part of the furniture at Chelsea and been integral to that, like you say, that dynasty. They're gone. And so something's going to have to come in there and fill the gap. And I think it's not like a City situation where you could say, oh, if Virgino left, it'd be like, well, that's a blow, but they do have the players already in place to back her up. I think Chelsea, you're looking at that thinking like they're going to have to make some serious moves in the summer because there's all sorts of holes suddenly all over that squad.
But it's also mad to think about, isn't it? There's something that we started the episode with. If that somehow happens and Bunny Shaw did go to Chelsea, then I think we'd have to just re-record this again. As I said, I did say that, didn't I? About 10 minutes ago, I think now. Like, if Bunny Shaw goes to Chelsea, put this entire episode in the bin because you fucked it.
That would be ill. Yeah, we'll definitely revisit if that was to happen. I have a feeling it's all a bit of brinksmanship, and we will see Bunny sign a 4-year contract in a couple of weeks.
Listen, I said this about the Alexia Putellas to London City Lionesses rumours.
Yeah.
I'll say it about Bunny Shaw. If that happens, I will be very, 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 very shocked.
Yeah.
I don't know what I could promise to do to make you understand
what did you say earlier that would lead you to
if Leicester won 3-0 tonight, I would take the day off work tomorrow and streak through the streets.
Yeah.
Please don't check the score.
It's 0-0.
Why would you do that? Why would you tell me it was 0-0? Why would you instill any form of hope within me? Just lie to me. Tell me it's already 5-0. Just lie to me. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you again if you've reached the end of this mammoth episode with us. If you're a City fan, if you're not a City fan, whatever, let us know your opinions. Where do you think they go next? Have you got like a stupid hot take about who they should sign? Should they let Bunny Shaw go? If you have that opinion, don't comment because that's silly. But yeah, thank you very much. I will do my usual spiel. If you enjoyed this episode, please do give us a rating. That would be very much appreciated. And give us a follow so you never miss an episode. We are a bit sporadic / inconsistent with our release schedules. So following us is a good idea because you could check one week and there's no episodes. And then next week think I'm not going to check. And there will be an episode.
A live episode from, spoiler alert, Como next weekend when we're there to watch.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Feminine.
If you're still here and you care, next weekend we are going over to Como for a little mini break, but we also thought we would go and see some proper fucking defending in the form of Sophie Howe playing for Como. So, looking forward to that. And hopefully we're going to go and get to say hi to Sophie as well and just probably offer her all of our money to come back and see us through the playoff game. Just cry at her. Why did you leave us, Sophie? Why? Anyway, on that note, thank you very much for listening again.
Thank you.
Bye.